Hi, my name is James. I'm one of the techs at Richmond Public Library, and I'm here to do the Twitch program on writing interactive fiction using ink. So as you can see on my screen, I am on the Inkle website, and the website is just inklestudios.com. This is a free open source program. It's actually I'd like to say it's quite easy to use, but I've also been using it for quite a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a very simple way of starting off with it. And then, first I'm going to show you how to download it, where it lives. And then I'm going to show you the game that I created, which looks very, very complicated. But what I want you to keep in mind is that it's not something that I sat down for an hour to do. I actually worked on it for quite a long time, and it's not even finished yet. There are still some bugs that I'm working out, and I'm going to show you how to start off really easily. It's a pretty fun program to do for those of you who were around during the early days of playing video games, and you remember the games like Zork that were all text and how much fun they were. I actually had one as a teenager for my Commodore 64 called it was for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it was all text, and you got to go through the books with it. It was really fun. So I really like these kind of games. I think that they're making quite a good comeback with popularity. So if you ever wanted to sit down and write a interactive a game, and for those who might not know what interactive games mean, if you remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books, it's kind of like a game like that. So you get to choose where your story goes with many endings and many options, and they can be super fun to watch. Super fun to watch, but super fun to play. So this is Ink. It's a narrative scripting language for games. It's pretty simple to use when you start off. Once you get into more complicated things like more choices and even putting in things like variables, because you might want your reader to find something that then is used later on. It can get pretty complicated. So let's just start off with showing you the website. Again, it's inklestudios.com. And this is a free open source program, which means you can download it. There's no cost to it. You can even, if you're a programmer and you want to add to it, it's open source, so they often welcome people doing that. This particular version that I'm doing is running off of a Linux system, but it is available for Mac, it's available for Windows, and it's available for Linux. I did find it was a little bit more difficult to get it to run with Linux than with Mac or Windows. I've used all three. The Mac version probably works the best. Windows is pretty close behind. And the Linux version, we're going to see. This is actually, I got it working today. I used a Flatpak program installer. That's how I got it to work. I tried to follow the instructions on the Inkle Studios website, and I couldn't get it to work that way. But it seems to be working pretty well right now. So we'll see how it works for Linux. You get to be my test audience. So on the Inkle Studios website, there's the basics tutorial, and there's the full guide. So it's good to start off with the basics tutorial, which has, I'm just going to open it up here. It actually has a really good beginner's introduction. So a little bit of this is actually what I'm going to show you as well, and we're going to talk about that. I'm not going to use a lot of the terminology that they use with the programming, just because if you're totally not familiar with it and you're more of a writer than you are a programmer, then I think it's easier just to think of it into some writing terms. So I'm going to use some terms of my own. There's also the full guide. So once you go through the basics and you get a good handle on what you're doing with Inkle, you can go to the full guide, and it has some pretty cool things that you can do. But to be honest, there's so many different things that this program is capable of. Sometimes as you're writing, you just sort of see how you can use one thing that's working one way for one thing, and then you can use it for something totally different. So it's actually it's pretty cool, and it's really fun to do. So if you don't have the program already, you would go to the download tab, and it's going to bring you to this page. If you scroll down, there's a lot of information on the current version and what it has, and compared to the last versions. But just scroll down, and you'll see assets. Here, you can either download, again, the Linux version, the Mac version, the Windows version. If you're running Windows 10, Windows 7, you're going to download the 64, so Inky Windows 64. And then there's also the source codes, which again, if you're a programmer and you want to add to this, then, that's what, it's open source. So, have at it, have fun. But otherwise, just download them and run them. If you download the Windows version, it actually runs it. They all download as zip files. So, well, except for Mac runs as a DMG, but Windows runs downloads as a zip file. You unzip it, and then when you go into the folder, you just find the file that's inky.exe and just run it, and it runs right from there. The Mac version, you're going to run the DMG and you're going to drag the Inky file over to your applications folder. It'll save it in there and you can run it from there. And again, the Linux version, I actually, I did it as a Flatpak installation. Super easy to do it that way and quite headache free actually. So the program, the game that I made, I called it the Lich King. So those of you who might be a Game of Thrones fan, you might know who, you might know what the Lich King was. Of course, that's not, for copyright reasons, I am not using the Lich King from Game of Thrones. That was only for reference. So the Lich King in my story, Lich Kings are basically like zombies. And this is how you start off. So in mine, already I'm using variables, which means the game is going to remember your pronouns, whether or not you're using he, him, she, her, or they, them. So let's go for they, them. Personally, I use he, him, but this gives you the options. And then you read the stories. So my story starts off, underneath the highest mountain survives abandoned tunnels once dug out by the Lich as a stronghold. Though some say these Lich were content to live in peace, many sought to steal their magic until eventually they were destroyed. Click continue. What lives in those dark corridors now is cursed and more vile than the Lich ever were. No one dared seek out their magic, until today. You climb down the cracked stone steps, avoiding the tree roots that have grown into them, pulling your cloak tighter around you to ward off the dropping temperatures. You heft your sword and take courage in your years of training. You pound your chest, feeling the strength of your heavy plate armor. It's shadowy inside the dungeon, but torches that line the hallway in front of you still burn from Lich magic. You sense the danger within. Your armor class is 16. Your hit points are 10. You have 1 gold. Continue. Inside the dungeon, it's shadowy, but torches that line the hallway in front of you still burn from Lich magic. You sense the danger within. Obviously, I gotta fix that, because that's repeated. There's a door to your south and a long corridor ahead that bends to the right. So here you have some choices that you can make. For me, I did, take the south door, follow the corridor. I also wanted to have some other options. So for one thing, check stats and supplies. So as I kept writing the game, and I realized that I wanted the character to be able to pick up things like swords and more gold and things like that. I created something for checking the stats and supplies. I have also got a map. So I'm using a map for the dungeon, and then here you can exit. So if you wanted to quit the game, you can quit the game. So just to show you these stats and the map, because those are actually kind of regardless of where you are in the game, if you click on those 2 links, it goes to one place and then it has to bounce back to wherever you are in the game. And it was pretty interesting the way that Inky does that. I'm not going to go that much into it today because this is sort of a beginner tutorial. If you do like this tutorial, we do have another tutorial on our YouTube channel, and that tutorial it's on our YouTube channel at Richmond Public Library. Sorry, I'm trying to. I'm reading the game and thinking to myself, I got to get rid of this extra line, and it's obviously really bothering me. So I'm just going to continue so that it's not staring at me. Anybody who's a writer will understand the second that you see something that's, an error in your book, all of a sudden it's, oh my goodness, I got to change that. So I'm going to take the south door. And actually, no, I'm going to follow the corridor. I'm going to admit that I do know, where this all goes. So I know taking the corridor is going to be the way to go. So you're at a dead end where you find a closed chest. So what I will tell you, a little bit of meta gaming here. For those of you who are into role-playing games, you'll know that metagaming means that you as a person know what the outcome was supposed to be. So me as the author, I know what the outcome would have been. So there was actually a possibility for a battle there between going to the chest and the door, but it's a randomized thing, so the battle doesn't always happen. And I did that, just so that the game wouldn't be the same every single time you play it. So here I can open the chest, I can go back to the south door, and again I've got that check stats and supplies and look at maps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the map first. So here's the map, and a little bit of text. You take out a weathered scroll from your rucksack and carefully unravel it. From what you can tell, you're in a corridor outside of room 1, near the entrance. You look at the map, and everything's numbered, so I did that. I mean, it makes it so you know where everything is. But I mostly did that so that as I was writing the game, I didn't get mixed up. And I figured that if I wanted to, I could always change that in the end and take away all the numbers and make it a little bit more, a little bit more mysterious. But for my own sanity as I was writing it, I really needed everything numbered. I'm gonna hit continue. You're at a dead end where you find a closed chest. Okay, so now if I check stats, I can check my stats. And there we go. And it reminds you what your armor class is, what your hit points are. So I'm using armor class and hit points the same as role-playing games. So armor class is going to be how hard it is to hit you. Hit points are my character's health. 10 out of 10, obviously I'm pretty healthy. And things I'm carrying: a rucksack, a map, sword, heavy plate armor, and 1 gold. You're at a dead end where you find a closed chest again. Okay, so here, anytime I find something to pick up, it's going to add it to what you were carrying. So I'm going to open the chest. You open the chest carefully, watching for any traps that may have been set. The lid is dusty and you cough while breathing in the foul stench. Inside, you find a scroll. You now have a scroll that removes curses. Okay, so now I've got a scroll. Again, there was actually an option there that when I clicked there was a chance that there could be an explosion, in which case I actually would have lost hit points. And there's also, I think I have about 4 different things that you can possibly find inside of that chest. So again, it's not always going to be the same thing. The scroll to remove curses is handy, but it's not actually the most handy thing that I could have found. So it's not really, knowing how the game goes as the writer, I was actually kind of hoping for something else. But now I'm going to go through the south door. You enter the south door and step into what appears to have been a place of great battle. Several skeletons lie in the dirt, still clutching the rusted swords and wearing armor beyond repair. You see a skeleton, long past, its leg caught in what looks like a bear trap. It's still adorned in a shiny, gold-plated suit of armor. It is beautiful. The armor, of course. The skeleton is hideous. Okay, so I tried for a little bit of humor there. Hopefully you found that funny. I mean, I thought it was funny. The photos that I'm using in this particular game that I made, they were photos that I got from Pixabay. So I'm making sure that the photos are, they're copyright free, royalty free, free to use, not just dragging things off of Google Images, because that's you don't want to take somebody's photo that they're trying to use to make a living off of. So that's basically where I got it, and I added it to it. So Inky can export as an HTML file, which creates what you're looking at right here. And it's a really fun and easy way to make a game like this. Add a little bit of add a few images, makes it a little bit more fun too. You can also export Inky files as a JSON file, and you can add them into, if you're doing a Unity project. So if you're doing an actual video game, you can. There are plugins to use Inky in your games, which is kind of fun. And there's lots of tutorials for that online. That's a little bit beyond what I personally know how to do, so I won't be going into that. So my options here: take the exit door in the east, return to the entrance to the dungeon, take the armor and put it on, and then of course my check stats and supplies and my look at map, which again is going to be there forever. In this particular instance, in the chest, if I had found a healing potion, then my option to drink the healing potion would show up, but it's only going to show up if I have that particular object, which I don't have. So here I'm going to take the armor and put it on. You put on the armor, and although at first it feels too loose a fit, the plates magically conform to your physique. You feel powerful. your AC is now 18. So I'm actually doing pretty well in this game right now. So there was an option actually for the armor to be cursed. I was kind of hoping for the cursed armor because I have, you know, the potion that of taking away curses, or scroll rather. So then I could have read the scroll and gotten rid of the curse. However, you know, that's, you know, it's better that I got the good armor. So, you know, I'm totally disappointed. But this is basically how this particular game works. You can see that it also clears the screen whenever I go into a different room, so it's not always cluttered. And as an HTML file too, there are places online that you can upload your HTML files and create them into a SDK file for creating an app that can be used on an Android phone. You unfortunately can't do that for iPhones or for Apple products because to do that, you would have to pay a fee to be a creator, whatever it's called, and it's you know, if you're just doing this for fun, it's not worth it. But you can. There are lots of free sites out there to turn HTML files into SDK files, and then you can put it on your phones, give it to your friends. You can even sell it if you want, as long as you're not using any copyright stories or themes or photos, which I'm not. So let me show you the text to show you what this looks like. I'm just going to switch my screen here. And there we go. Oops. Okay, so here is my Lich Code. So the you can see, there we go. You can see on this particular thing. Oh, you know what? Actually, this isn't showing up totally on the screen here. So here, let me just fix this here so that you can see everything. There we go. That's a lot better. Okay. So this is kind of neat because when you're actually writing the code, Inky will, or actually I should say Ink. Ink will show you on the right-hand side, so you can see where it says the Lich King. On the right-hand side, it shows you how the game is going to work. And on the left-hand side is all of your code. So right now in this particular game, I have 1,667 lines of code. That took me a pretty long time to write. It's not finished yet. So so here I have a scroll bar in the middle between the left and right-hand side, so I can go up and down, and I can, you know, if I need to find something. It uses different color codings depending upon what you're doing. So you can see the green is actually variables. The blue is sort of your code. Black is your story, and I'll go into that more when we start to make our own together here. But one thing that this particular app won't do is on the right hand side where the game is playing, if you were using things like photos or some of the HTML codings, it won't all show up, so it won't show you the picture, so you don't actually get to see what that's going to look like unless you export it as HTML. So when I show you the beginning of the code, we're not going to go that much into it, but you can actually still play it. So I can go you know, Lich King, I can and go into it. Unfortunately, because I have an error in it right now, it's not this part of it doesn't actually work beyond the first choice. So I won't show you everything in this one, but I showed you enough in the HTML anyways. So let's actually go to making our own. Okay, so I'm going to switch this to this. There we go. And so you can see on here. You have on the right hand side, once upon a time, ... and then on the right hand side it says once upon a time ... end of story. So end of story is basically letting you know that that's the end of the game, and that's it. You do have on the top right hand side I wonder if you can see that on here. Here, hold on. I'm going to see if I can make this no, you can't see that. Okay, I'm going to make this so that you can see it a little bit better. There we go. There we go. Okay, because this is kind of important that you can actually see everything that is happening here. And there we go. All right. Okay, so you can see end of story, and actually, you know what? I will even make that a little bit bigger. Here, hold on. There we go. Okay, so you can see end of story, and then you can see the code on the left-hand side. In the middle there, you can see it says no issues. So if there is an issue, it will actually say, it'll say issue, and it'll have a little warning box, and then you click it and it'll tell you what lines have problems, like where the game is being hung up, which is really nice when when you're at the point where you have 2,000 lines of code, that it'll tell you, it's getting hung up on line 478, and then you can go and fix it. You can also click on, the little menu drop down here, and it'll go here, and it'll actually, so you can create more than one ink file that are all connected. So when the game plays one, it'll play the next after, and you can tell it to go to different files. And this can be really handy when if you're making an interactive game and you want to have one thing that sort of says, this is how the game ends. You can actually create that as a separate file. I'm not going to go that much into it today, but just so that you're aware. You also have your typical file options of creating a new project, opening up a project, saving a project. You can't do save as with ink, and I don't really understand why. I kind of wish that that somebody who programs ink would put that option in. Once you save it as something, that's it. You're saving it as that. If you want to rename the file, then you have to go to your folder where it exists and rename it. And if you want to save it into a different folder, you have to go into that folder and move it. So you can't do that from ink like you could with, say, Microsoft Word or something like that. So you also have edit and view, so you can change things a little bit. The newest version here, this is actually version, I'm just going to double check here because I think it's version 11. This is actually a version 0.11. It's the newest version, and this one they came out with this thing where it's kind of neat. So basically, if you, instead of having to go back to the instructions, if you're trying to remember how do I do variables, you can actually go to ink. And you can't see this on Zoom, but you can't see this on Twitch, but you do see. I'm so zoomed out. I just say Zoom automatically now. You click on ink, and you'll have basic, structured, choices, variables. And so, for example, for choices, if I want a basic choice, I can go to choices, basic choice, click on it, and it just does it for me. So this is a basic choice, and you can see on the right hand side here, let me make it so that you can see it. There we go. So on the right hand side, it now says this is a choice that can only be chosen once, so you can click on it, and then and that's it, because I don't have anything else after it. So it's kind of neat that instead of trying to remember what you're supposed to use to do certain things, it does have that on it. I'll be honest, I've been using this for quite a few years now, and I don't really feel the need to have that. But I think in the beginning, when I was trying to learn this, it would have been really helpful. So there's also the help option, so it'll take you right to the documentation that I showed you earlier, and that documentation is invaluable. I still use that even now, even though I've been doing this for a few years, because I don't do this consistently enough that I'm going to remember everything. So let's talk about starting a game. So I'm actually going to start this from scratch. I'm going to start this fresh. I'm going to go to File. There's New Project. I'm going to click that. Oh, actually, you know what? If I do New Project, it's not going to show up in OBS. So actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to erase what I have here, start from scratch. So now all I have is end of story on the right-hand side. I have nothing on the left-hand side. On the far right-hand side, there are actually two arrows that I'm going to show you real quick here. Yeah, you can see the two arrows that are that are here. And basically, it rewind one single choice, while you're testing a game, or you can rewind right to the beginning, and that's what that is. But for now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and I'm going to do a little bit of code. So for writing the story, you don't actually have to put in any code to write the story. You can just start writing the story. So, of course, to write a story, you have to have an idea for a story, and that, that's sort of up to anybody. If you have an idea for a story, just start writing. Write it down in a notebook first if you want. For interactive fiction, I find that the easiest way to do it is write the story linear completely once, and then go back through it and see where the choices might be, where the character might have made a different option. Have somebody else read it and tell you, oh, well, what if the character did this instead? Because it's interactive fiction, so that gives you more ideas. So I'm gonna do a dungeon crawl because I love dungeon crawls. I think they're super fun. I'm a beginner advanced Dungeons and Dragons player, and dungeon crawls were our thing. So let's do a dungeon crawl. So I'm going to start off and with interactive fiction, you're always thinking of it in terms of the person who's reading it is the character. So you want to make sure that that you're not writing it, really super flowery prose in the sense that they're reading it from the perspective of somebody else doing the action. The fun of an interactive story is that you are the main character. So you want to write it like that. So you're going to use a lot of you did, you were looking at this is what you were looking at, and short paragraphs. So you don't have to, it's not going to be, you read, 70 pages of a novel, and then you have an option. I mean, you could do it that way if you want to do it that way. Maybe you could do that well, but generally for things like this, you want to have short paragraphs and then a choice, because the interactive part is going to be the fun part. So I'm going to say, we're gonna have, or your character is going to be an adventurer who is leaving his hometown. I'm gonna say, as you leave your hometown, you see a wooden door in the ground ahead. So right here, you're automatically going to have a choice. So you'll also notice that what I did was, so I gave the story and then I just went 2 spaces down. In the game itself, leaving that space, so line 2, I just left blank. Leaving line 2 blank doesn't actually affect the game at all. It doesn't create a space in the game. What it does for me is, if I'm going to have add a choice in there, then when I'm looking at the game and I'm trying, if there's a bug or something like that, it just makes it easier to look at. So I like leaving spaces between the text and my code. So to make a choice in Inky and to tell the game that it's a choice, all you actually have to do is use an asterisk. So shift and the number 8 creates an asterisk, and you'll notice now I have an error. Or actually, maybe you won't notice because I'm zoomed in too much. Oh no, actually you can see, so there is an error. It says that the choice is completely empty, interpreting as a default fallback choice. Add a divert arrow to remove this warning. So a divert arrow is actually an arrow that tells the game to go somewhere else. So first we're going to give it a choice. So as you leave your hometown, you see a wooden door in the ground ahead. Obviously the 2 choices are ignore the door or open the door. So those are kind of your 2 choices. Oh, actually, a third choice could be, look around and see if you find anything else. But I'm just going to do the 2 choices. So my first choice is going to be ignore the door. And then the second choice, again, it's going to be asterisk. And I do a space after the asterisk again, just so that when I'm looking at the text, it just makes it easier to read it. So ignore the door, examine the door. So there are my 2 choices. So for the game right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works here. So here we go. So this is how the game works right now. We have, I'll do the reader voice. As you leave your hometown, you see a wooden door in the ground ahead. Ignore the door. Examine the door. So if you ignore the door, examine the door, it's not actually going to do anything except end the story, because we have nothing after that. And you'll also notice that when I hit ignore the door, it adds ignore the door over at the top left. So you might want that there so that you remind the reader this is the choice you made, or you might not want that there. So if you don't want that there, I'll show you how to make sure that doesn't stay there. So here, I'm going to bring this back. So if you don't want that there, what you're going to do is after the asterisk and surrounding your game text, you're going to use square brackets. Square brackets tells the game that when you make the choice, that it is going to delete the choice. Sometimes when you make the choice, it might be that the choice actually becomes a part of the next text, so you might not want to do that all the time. But in this case, I'm going to. So I'm going to ignore the door or examine the door. So if I ignore the door, we're going to say that the game ends. So I'm going to give myself a couple lines here, and I'm just going to say, you ignore the door and continue on your way. You live an extremely dull life. You live an extremely dull life with no excitement. And then I'm going to use the divert arrow, which is actually just the minus sign and then a greater than sign. And then I'm going to use all in capitals, done. And so now, if I was to play the game, and this is where I get to use those arrows. Remember I said those arrows are on top right? So I'm going to actually restart the story, and it's going to go right to the beginning. And now, when I click ignore the door, I get this. Oh, and look at this. I do have a typo. There we go. You ignore the door and continue on your way. You live an extremely dull life with no excitement. End of story. So there we go. So now, if I go back to the other side, I have examined the door, and on examine the door, I'm going to have, so this is where I think I'm going to have it divert to another section of the game. So to create a section of the game, I use the equal sign. So I'm going to go 3 equals, and I'll explain why I'm using 3, because you can't actually use 1 or 2. So 3 equals, and you notice now I have another error. So I have 2 errors. My errors are expected the name of the not. So I'm saying section of the game. The technical terminology for it is a not. Expected at least 1 line within the not, but saw end of line. So it's basically, it's waiting for me to input something and letting me know that I need to. So I'm going to call this door information. And you'll notice that I didn't use a space. This is actually not a typo. This is actually how you do it. So if I wanted to have a space, then I could underscore it, but you can't have a space. So if I put a space between door and information, then the not becomes door. So now I have door information. I still have an error because now the game doesn't know where to go. So if you wanted to get rid of that error, so that because sometimes you can't even test your game with an error, what I could do for temporarily is actually put in that divert arrow, which is the minus and greater than sign, and then just type done and tell the game this is where it finishes. And then now Ink thinks that I have a complete game, which technically I do. I just don't, it's just not a great game or any fun yet, really. So here, door information, now I can have, you walk slowly up to the door. The door appears to be of goblin make. Oh, actually a better word. Goblin craftsmanship. And perhaps even has a trap. You have heard many stories of the goblin. Oh, typing's terrible today. Goblin horde. and now you can give more choices. So the second that I give more choices, that divert of done no longer needs to be there, because the game now will stop at the choices and wait for you to make a choice. So what I can do is to make a choice, I go the asterisk, and then I'm going to go space, and then I'm going to say check the door for traps, or open the door. So those are going to be my two decisions. So you can see again, it's telling me that I have an arrow, and basically it's because I need to have either a divert or something that happens here. So check the door for traps. I'm going to be a little bit nasty here, and I'm going to say the outcome of that is going to be you have no experience checking for traps. A trap explodes, and you are no more. And now I'm going to end the game here. So the error goes away, the game is ended. I'm going to take away this done here. And again, because I took away that done, I now need to have something for open the door. So if I wanted to, I could have it divert to another knot. You can actually have knots within knots. So if I wanted a knot that was within door information, because it all has to do with the door information, what I would do is I would, instead of doing 3 equals, I would do 2. And then if I wanted a knot inside of the 2 equals knot, then I would just do 1 equal. So here I'm going to say door opens. Again, there's no spaces. I'm going to give it a done command just so that I can, just so that it doesn't give me that error. Open the door minus greater than sign, which is the divert arrow, and I'm going to tell it to go to door opens. And you can see that it when I start to type it, it gives me all the possibilities that it might be, and there we go. So door opens, no more errors. So the important thing with naming knots is that you can only name the knot once. So I've used door information here, so that means I cannot use door information as a knot anywhere else. However, because door opens is within door information, that means if I wanted door opens to be its own knot, so with 3 equals instead of 2, I could still use door opens. But I cannot use door opens inside of door information again, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So here we have a game that's kind of started. I'm going to show you how this works, and then I'm going to show you some other things that are really handy when you're creating your game. So here I'm going to start this again. So there we go. So now I'm going to examine the door, and it gives me end of story, because end of story because actually I didn't tell it to go to door information. So what I needed to add, so here I'll show you why that did that. So what I needed to add was, after examine the door, was that divert arrow and then door information, to tell it to go to door information. And so now when I play the game, and it's actually started already because I fixed it, but now I can go examine the door. You walk slowly up to the door. The door appears to be of goblin craftsmanship and perhaps even has a trap. You've heard many stories of a goblin horde. Check the door for traps. You have no experience checking for traps. Oh no! A trap explodes and you are no more. So there we go, and you can see check the door for traps is up there, and actually I might go in to show you why that could actually be handy if you wanted to leave that there. But first, before I go on any further, as you're writing your game, it's really easy to get mixed up where different different scenes are. So you can actually name things, so you can label things. So I'm going to give myself a couple lines, and if you use the /, and do 2 of them, they will turn green. And actually, I noticed that my coloring here in OBS is a little bit different than it is in real life, so I'm very quickly going to fix this. So there we go. Okay, so now you can see the colors that it will be if you decide to download Ink and try your own. So if I go // I can say beginning of game, and that does not translate into the game at all. So you can see it's not in my text. So this is basically creating a label. So then I can have here for the scene I can say mystery of the door. What I find handy with labels too is not just saying this is the beginning of my game, but when you're adding in variables. So I'm going to say variable list. So when you're adding in variables, so that when your character finds things along the way, or if you want your character to have things already, then having all your variable list in one place, and then even categorizing them, so that you have item variable list, potion variable list, all of those kind of things, really becomes helpful. So in my variable list, I'm going to add a variable. So this is actually where that Ink automatically adding in might actually be pretty helpful, because you can have different types of variables. You can have global variables which take place throughout the entire game. You can also have temporary variables, so that if it's just a variable you're using in that one particular section, you can. And then, of course, sometimes you need to modify the variable. So I'm going to add in a global variable, and this is what it looks like. So VAR, all in capitals, stands for variable, and then my number. So you can actually this is what the variable is going to be called. So my particular variable here, I'm just going to take some water. Oh, there you go. Okay, so my particular variable that I'm going to put in is going to be health. So the thing that can make a game like this really fun is whether or not you as a player are going to survive it, right? Like the old Choose Your Own Adventure books. The thing that made them fun was, are you going to survive? Or are you not going to survive? So I'm going to call this health, and I'm going to give it a variable of 15. So now, if I wanted to, I could say, as you leave your hometown, you see a wooden door in the ground ahead. You are feeling strong with, and then I'm going to go back to and then sometimes you'll have a total mind blank, and you'll be thinking to yourself, how do I tell somebody what their variable is? So I'm just going to look this up really fast. So to do that, right. So to tell somebody what their variable is, you use the and you know what? I don't actually know what these kind of brackets are called, which I can't remember, but they are above the square brackets if you press the shift, and this bracket, and then I'm going to say health, and then the close brackets. And now, here, I'll show you. So now, so now I can say you're feeling strong with 15 what? So I'm going to say with 15 health. There. And you can see too, as I add to the left-hand side for the game, it automatically updates the right-hand side to show you how things are going to work. So if I wanted to, I could say you have 20 health, and then it's going to update to 20. So that is a global variable. It can go everywhere. So now in our game, if we wanted to, instead of having, there we go. If you remember the trap, the trap goes off. You don't know how to do traps, so then it explodes, and the game is over. Not real fun, right? So we're gonna, instead of doing it that way, we're gonna have check the door for traps. You have no experience checking traps. A trap explodes, and You are hurt. So now what I can do is, instead of having this done, I'm going to have this divert to door opens, and I'm going to change that variable. So now that variable I'm going to take away. Say 5. So to do that, you use, I believe this is called a tilde, which is shift, and it's on the top left-hand side of your keyboard. And then you're going to go health is equal to health. So the variable is equal to the variable minus 5. And now if I do that and I play the game, I will examine the door, and I will check the door for traps, and it explodes but you hurt. You'll notice it didn't actually tell me what my health is. So if I wanted to tell me what my health is, then there we go. I'm actually just going to copy and paste what I had up at the top, which was the you're feeling strong with health. And but instead of feeling strong with health, because you're not feeling strong if you just, something exploded, right? So instead, I'm going to say your health is there. So now it says your health is 15. So, oh no, I've gone down 5. So now you've got a little bit more excitement to the game, because you're using a variable, and and there's a chance that you might not survive the game. So this is it makes it a lot more fun to be able to do that. You can also use that kind of thing with deciding where things are going to go. So because we don't have a whole lot of time left, I don't want to go too deep into all of this, but let's start the game again, and we will continue. But I do want to show you a really fun way that's really easy of making a decision of whether or not things work or don't work. So here we have that trap going off. So you might not want the trap to go off all the time, because then people are expecting it, right? So sometimes it's fun to actually have it that if the trap goes off, then you're hurt. But if the trap doesn't go off, then there's a reward, because people have played this before and they know that there could be a reward. We all want the reward. So the way that we're going to do that is under door information, under the not tag, where we have you walk slowly up to the door. You check the door for traps, and instead of it just going off, we are going to have you have no experience checking for traps. So again, I'm going to use that kind of squiggly bracket. And I'm going to say, a trap explodes and you are hurt. And I'm going to divert it to a room called hurt that I'm going to create. And then I'm going to use this line, which is basically where the backslash is. So you just shift in the backslash and it gives you that. And then you can give it another option. And this is called a 50-50 option. So this will, there's a 50-50 chance of it choosing kind of either one. Actually, sorry, you know what? To do a 50-50 option, I need that tilde in front of the A. So like this. Otherwise, it won't do a 50-50 option. It will actually do the first one first, and then if you were to go back to that situation, it would do the second one. So here we go. Trap explodes and you were hurt. Instead, I'm going to say you open the door and find gold. And so in order to find gold, we would need to create another variable for gold so that you're collecting it as you go. So you open the door and you find gold. And then I'm just going to have it divert over to door opens. And then I'm going to close that off. And then it's telling me that there's an arrow. Divert target not found. Oh, because I didn't create the divert target yet. So here we're I'm minusing the health. I'm going to do 2 equals because this is within the door information. I'm going to say hurt. which is what it's going to be called. And then right after your health, after you're hurt, I'm now going to have it go to door opens. There we go. Oh, actually I had that already, so I'm just going to delete that then. Okay, so now when we play the game, we will be given a 50-50 option. So I'm going to return, and so I'm going to examine the door. I'm going to check the door for traps. Oh, and you notice that it's only giving me the one option. So it should be check the door for traps and open the door. So sometimes when this happens, the easiest way to fix it is actually just to reverse the order and put open the door first, and then that fixes it. So okay, open the door or check the door for traps. So let's check the door for traps. So you have no experience checking for traps. A trap explodes. Oh no! So so I got hurt. So let's see if I try that again. Examine the door, check the door for traps, and oh, explodes again. Boy, I'm gonna try one more time, and then I'm just gonna assume that I got really terrible luck and I shouldn't be opening up doors. Okay, yeah, I just clearly shouldn't be checking for traps or checking doors like that or opening doors. So okay, so no matter what I do, it appears I'm going to explode. Sometimes that can happen with 50-50. I'm kind of like that when I'm driving places too. If there's a 50-50 chance of me taking the right or left, and one of them is not going to take me to my destination, I'm always going to go to the one that's not taking me to my destination. So that's just the way for me that 50-50 goes. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go back to the beginning, and we're going to add in a couple more things. Oops. There we go. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to add is, okay, so if you were to have it so that you could go back to where the door opens, so maybe if while you're writing this, instead of ignoring the door or examine the door, maybe instead of ignore the door, or actually as another option even, you could add in return to the town and buy supplies. So there we go. So return to the town and buy supplies. The problem with doing that now is that whatever you have chosen, the next time you go there, it's not going to be there anymore. So the asterisk only allows you to do a choice once. So this is, I shouldn't say it's a problem. There's a good use for it actually. But for example, if the option was you see a potion and the option was drink the potion, you don't want them to be able to keep drinking the potion if it's like a potion of healing, because you can only drink a potion once. So then you want the choice to disappear. But in this case, if I want the choice to stay there, instead of using an asterisk, I'm actually going to use a plus. And the plus makes this what's called a sticky choice. So the sticky choice is going to make the game so that it always gives you those options. And so actually for these ones, I'm actually going to make them all sticky choices. And so now, so for example, I'm going to say door opens. One of my options that I'm going to give myself is return to the outside. Just to show you. So in order for me to return to the beginning, I have to actually make this a room, or a room. I have to make this a knot. I used to call it rooms instead of knots to make it a little bit more, to make it easier for when I was teaching this. But so I have to make this a knot. But if I make it a knot at the beginning of the game, so I'll show you what happens. So if I go ... beginning, it's going to give me an error. And I'm going to say here town, and then I'm going to quickly make a knot. That this is where I'm going to put everything in. That's going to be the town, just to get rid of my errors. Okay, so if I try to play the game, I'll show you what'll happen now. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so now I'm going to reset it, and oh, it won't let me reset it. So that's because I've got that beginning not, so it doesn't actually know where to go or where to start. So usually what I do is, to sort of fix that, is I will have start the game. And you can make a little splash screen if you want. So if you're doing this to export as HTML, you could add an image and things like that on here. But I'm not going to show you how to do that today because I've got 5 minutes left, and that would be a great second session for this. So start the game, and then I'm going to go the divert arrow and beginning, and then that's really all I need. So now, when I go back over to the game and click go, I have the option to start the game. So then I can click start the game, and the game starts. So obviously for start the game, because, where am I here? I don't want it to, the start the game, I don't want it to be start the game as you leave your hometown. So I'm going to put start the game into those square brackets so that it disappears. So there we go. So now it's just as you leave your hometown. And then I can return to town by supplies. If I do that, there's nothing there yet. So I know that I need to do that. And I think the last thing that I want to show you on this, because that's actually enough to really get you started into figuring out how to make your own basic game, with some variables, with some choices, some sticky choices, and labeling things so that you know how to find things. The other thing that's really handy is actually what's called a to-do feature. So if you'll notice that there are some things on here that I started just to create the knots, knowing that that's where my knot is going to go, and I want to remember that I haven't put anything in there yet. So what I can do is, so for example with town, if I type in all capitals to do, you'll notice it's in green. It actually might be crashing on me here. I'm actually gonna just see if I can ignore that error. You can't see the error, so it's all good. It's all good. No, it's not all good. Hold on. Actually, this is a pretty good time if it's gonna crash on me. No, it didn't crash. Okay. Whew. Okay. So I can put in to do on the town, and then I can in door opens. I don't have anything there yet either, so I would go to do, and then I'm gonna want to do that kind of anywheres that I have something that needs to be done, and then that just that just reminds you that you need to go back there to fix that. So it's actually quite handy to do that. And the biggest thing that I should have shown you right at the beginning that I didn't, that is really, really important, is when you go to File, is making sure to go to Save Project. Because if you are working on Inky, it is open source, and sometimes, depending upon where they are in their build, there might be a new feature or something that is a little bit buggy, and it can crash. So I don't find that it crashes very often anymore. When I started using this a few years ago, it used to crash actually all the time, but it's gotten really good now, so I don't find that it crashes very often. However, I'm using the Linux version right now, again, that I mentioned that I installed using Flatpak. When I put in the to-do commands, it immediately gave me a JavaScript error, and I thought it was about to crash. So if I was working on something and I was in like 100 lines of code right now, I would probably be panicking because I've lost everything. So just like anything else, you just want to go to that save project, and then you want to save as you go, which is also very important. So I'm going to say thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you create some projects. If you create a really cool Inky project, we want to know about it, so let us know about it. And feel free to share with us. All right. So I'm going to sign off and say have a very good weekend.